You get that buyer now that's unrepresented and wants to come and do a private deal with you. Are you just giving this random private person
that's
the lockbox code and saying, yeah, go through my house? Or now are you going to be there because you don't know who the fuck this person is? So you're going to stay home now and you're going to play realtor and take them for a tour? A little awkward. I'm ready.
Good morning. Episode, oh my God, I don't even know what episode this is.
126 of KT Confidential.
126. Welcome, KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. I'm Adrian. This is my partner, next door neighbor, friend, Ariel Cormendi.
Good morning.
You've changed your position today.
I did for the last podcast that I did with Vish as well. I'm actually
looking out the window there.
I'm actually sitting at Jennifer's desk. Yeah, you know what? It's giving me a little bit of daylight and giving me that natural lighting for illuminating my face. So, yes. And then I've got a little bit of the KT photo wall on the side, the money trees in the back.
How are they doing? After last month,
they're doing they're doing
blooming.
They're doing really good, but we got to get them new pots. We got to repot them.
They're looking a little droopy. Is that normal for money trees?
Well, it's because they're they need room to grow. They need new pots. They need a new home. Got to find a realtor.
Funny guy. Today's discussion came up in your podcast last week, which I was not a part of, but somebody chimed in and said they want to talk.
It didn't come up. It didn't come up during the podcast. It was pre-podcast.
Okay. You were fishing for topics. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Somebody chimed in on Insta and didn't give us a lot of detail as to what they wanted us to talk about.
Do you remember who it was?
My phone is charging and it's off. I try and shut down all devices.
We'll have Ian tag him in the post.
Yep.
In the video. But they want us to talk about for sale by owner. So we'll just have a general conversation.
Sounds good. And for those of you listening or watching, if you're watching, please make sure you subscribe. And if you're listening, follow along.
Please make sure you subscribe.
And throw us a like. Leave us a comment, by the way. We haven't got any comments on the podcasts for new podcasts. We'd love to see some comments on the actual podcast where you're streaming or on YouTube. Give us some ideas for future topics. So if you want us to chat about something, whether it's something personal, something about real estate, something about getting into real estate, investing, buying, selling, leasing, whatever, we will put it on our agenda.
Well, it's actually interesting because it would be nice to hear from people, because last week, I believe it was, I had a text message from a client of ours. Shout out to Sarah. Sarah messaged me and she was asking, she said, I was listening to your podcast a couple of weeks ago and you were talking about a tile company that cleans grout. Who was it? And she said, I listen to your podcast every week, which is great to hear. But, if people aren't commenting, we don't know. So leave a comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Thank you for listening.
So today's topic is going to be a little bit of a general discussion because it's just such a broad topic when you say for sale by owner or selling privately. We could probably be chatting for hours and hours about this topic as a whole. So where do you want to start?
I think, maybe we should explain what it is, what a general consensus of what for sale by owner means for those of you who don't know. So there are, I think nowadays, there's true for sale by owner where it's privately listed. It's not on the real estate boards. It's not publicly listed. And somebody may go to Canadian Tire, pick up a yard sale sign, slap it to the front of their house or their front fence, and write for sale with their phone number. That is the most basic form of for sale by owner. And that is extremely rare. The more common for sale by owner is where somebody enrolls the services of a real estate brokerage, a registered brokerage, where their business structure is basically you pay them a flat fee. They list your house for sale. They may include photos or some relatively limited service, and your home is listed.
Technically, that's not for sale by owner because you are.
Listen, okay, you just walked away from me.
You are listed.
And
I had to blow my nose. I'm pretty sure there's a fucking cat living next door here.
I explained what a true for sale by owner is. But yes, technically, when you're using a brokerage that offers these types of services, you are represented. But that is, I think, what the general opinion of it is. So if someone hires one of these companies, that's what they consider for sale by owner.
In the real estate world, if you are a realtor, a broker, or whatever, you will be privy to the slang term of what is referred as a mere posting. So it's merely a posting on the MLS, essentially. And people that are thinking of selling privately, I think they like that idea because they know the vast majority of the exposure. Although I would debate that now against social media platforms and social ads based on our statistics. But yes, MLS, realtor.ca is still the number one website in Canada for real estate searches. So I think people that are considering selling privately like that idea because it gives them the exposure on MLS. So they'll pay that flat fee. This brokerage will basically put it on MLS and you do everything else. Some of them you even have to send in your own photos. I mean, some of them you can pay and get photos, and there are companies out there that you can pay and get offer assistance and things of that nature. They basically have salaried, registered realtors that, I don't know. We should have this discussion further and maybe have Amanda, the manager at Century 21 Miller, on board, because she used to be a manager for one of those companies, one of those bigger companies.
That's right.
So she'll know all the ins and outs of it, but that's the gist. So let's talk about why somebody would want to sell on their own without a realtor. Number one.
Am I still with you? Sorry, I just switched my Wi-Fi router because it was choppy and I was connected to the wrong one.
I'm surprised you're not hardwired because you're so close to your router.
Well, I'd need to buy a dongle. I guess I can go buy a dongle. these laptops, they have no connections. A dongle is an adapter that allows, because there's no Ethernet ports on these laptops nowadays, right?
Well, now
but I do have wires.
You're chopping on my end now, and you weren't before, so I don't know. You
were chopping on my end. That's why I switched.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I shut everything. I shut everything down. So maybe you've got some stuff on or working. I don't know. Anyway, number one reason that people sell privately or for sale by owner?
Number one reason is they have the perception that it ultimately costs. Well, they believe
saving money. They think they're going to save money.
They think they're going to save money. I was going to say it costs less. It does cost less, but they don't save money necessarily.
Well, hang on, because the
service costs less.
Okay, well, it depends how.
That's what I mean.
It depends how you are proceeding, how you are going to sell the home privately. Like back in the day when I was a kid, selling your home privately meant going to the hardware store, getting a for sale.
Listen, okay,
for sale sign.
I literally said those exact words when you walked away from me.
Well, sorry, whatever. So I'm right.
You are right.
You hammer that sign in the front lawn and wait for people to knock on your fucking door. But now
you don't see that often now. It does. I have seen it actually, but
yeah, those homes never sell.
No.
But the perception that you're going to save money. But number one, okay, so I don't have the stats, and it's a hard stat to find if you can ever find it, as to how many people actually sell without a brokerage. So that includes those mere postings.
That's such a minute fraction of a percent that it really wouldn't weigh heavily into.
Well, I've come across individuals that, they have a marketing background, they have a lot of sales background, and they understand how to market a product, and they'll go on Facebook and put their ad out onto all kinds of different groups and put it on Kijiji and take the cheapest route to finding interested buyers. There's a lot of buyers out there. There's a lot of shortage of inventory in pretty well everywhere in Ontario right now. So buyers are looking everywhere for homes, and looking for everywhere for homes that aren't on the market, aren't readily available to the widest audience possible.
Yes.
And that's always what gets me, is because when you're selling a product like a home, which is your biggest asset, and it's a big ticket item, sure, you're going to pay a percentage to a brokerage if you hire a realtor, but don't you want to market the home to the widest audience possible?
Yeah.
And, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that, number one, realtors have a database, several databases. One, we have a database of buyers, we have a database of sellers, we have a database of realtors. And all three of those databases, in some way, in some capacity, on many listings, help us to drive up the price or create more traffic, create more showings. And then we have a following on social media, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever. And these are all people that at some point or another either have bought or sold properties with us, or are interested or have expressed interest. So these are a captive audience. When you're selling privately or for sale by owner, you don't get that. So number one, that's going to cost you money. But when I'm going to backtrack again now, when you list your home with one of those companies, with one of those brokerages that are just going to take your property and put it on MLS, not do anything else, you have to pay them. And generally speaking, you are paying them upfront. So money out of pocket right away.
I think that's always the case from what I'm aware of.
And you are paying regardless if your home sells or not.
Right. And many of these listings don't end up selling, and then they end up relisting with the brokerage. They don't get that money back.
I would say, I don't know the current stat on, because there's a number of those brokerages now, right? Like 10 years ago, there was really only maybe one or two companies doing that. Now there's a whole bunch of, small boutique brokerages or guys working out of their basement that.
Well, there's real estate agents that do it, right?
Yep.
They'll say, pay me a couple grand. I'll take photos, list it. The rest is in your hands.
Yep. So the last time I checked or I heard, like only 20 or 30% of those homes sold. And that was a few years ago. So, and that number has gone down now, just because with homes selling as quickly as they are, most buyers are working with a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the next point, cost. Most buyers are working with a realtor.
Right.
Most buyers want their own representation. They want to know, is this a good home? What's wrong with this home? Is this a good street? Is this a good neighborhood? What do you think the value is of this home? How much is this home going to be worth in 6 months or a year? How much would this house rent for? What kind of tenant would be interested in a property like this? There's hundreds of questions that buyers will have in the course of purchasing a property. And quite frankly, if you're going to see a home that's for sale by owner, you're probably going out to see other homes as well, which are more than likely fully represented. So the buyer brokerage needs to get paid. And generally speaking, that's a percentage of the sale price of the property. So right away, if I showed your property and you were selling it by yourself, I would have a contract that you would sign that says, if my buyer purchases this property, if we come to an agreement, you will compensate my brokerage X percentage on the sale price. So right away, there goes your savings, because you're gonna have to pay to find that buyer.
Well, and if you don't, and we see it all the time, if you don't offer that, and certainly make it explicitly clear that you are.
Be careful, I don't want to go to another ethics course.
That you are offering it, as unethical as it may be, and many real estate agents will avoid showing those houses, right? Because they don't.
If they do, they're not doing their clients service.
Oh no, I'm not arguing with.
How many times? Okay, well, let's not talk about what other people are doing. Let's talk about what we're doing. If we take a client,
this is because someone needs to know if they do opt to sell it on their own. What I'm saying is it would be advantageous for them to make it explicitly clear and to choose to pay a cooperating brokerage in order to attract those agents.
Well, it's not even just to attract the agents. If you're having a proper conversation as a realtor with your buyer, you're under a buyer representation agreement, which means I, as the buyer, am being represented by you, the realtor, and I, as the buyer, agree that you will be compensated, 2.5% of the sale price of the property. So if now you, as a realtor, show me a property and they're only offering $1,000 in compensation, me as the buyer, I have to pay the difference between that 2.5% value and the $1,000. So now I got to pay you $20,000 out of my pocket to compensate you and your brokerage for your work that's been done. And right. I'm looking at now the seller saying, hey, hang on a second. If I got to pay him $20,000, I'm not paying you $800,000 anymore. I'm paying you $780,000, so I don't have to be out of pocket that amount of money.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how you cut it. The seller, in some capacity, is going to pay to have a buyer represented.
Right.
And the odds, let me tell you, the odds of a buyer coming as a private buyer to buy from a private seller, I can't remember the last time I heard of that happening.
I do. And I'll tell you what, every time it's ever happened, the buyer is getting the bigger fucking stick. Like the seller's getting screwed and they don't even know it. And that's the sad part, because they think, and a lot of these companies will advertise saved X amount of money, but in commission. But ultimately, end of the day, these two situations I can recall, the seller would have done extremely better. Extremely better.
Not with an agent like you.
Not with an agent like me. They would have done much better selling it on the open market, money in pocket at the end of their day. 100%.
Well, let's think about this. So people think, and people see the ads and whatever, saved X amount of money on commission. And I've heard that before, because being a realtor, anytime you go to a party or you meet new people and they ask you what you do, and you say, well, I'm a realtor, or I'm a, part owner in a real estate team and this and that. All of a sudden they start talking about real estate experiences with me, right? I'm sure it happens to you. And I remember somebody that I know, kind of an acquaintance, we'll say, and he says to me, "Oh yeah, I had this place. You remember you were there once?" I said, "Yeah, you're not there anymore." No, I sold it. Sold it by myself. Saved thousands. Didn't have to pay a realtor. So, at that time, I was really motivated, we'll say, to dig into, all right, how much did this guy sell for? And because I knew the house, I'd been through it. And obviously we have access to the land registry system, so you can see the, the transaction price, sale price. So I dug in and I sold it. Didn't pay any commissions to anybody. Had the lawyer review the contracts. By the way, I'll throw this in there, get it slightly off topic. If you are doing one of these transactions where a realtor is not involved, please, for the love of God, have a conditional agreement or a condition in the agreement to have your lawyer review the contract. And I would do it so both parties have independent lawyers doing so. So nobody can come back and say that they didn't know something, they weren't privy to something in the contract, or they got screwed or whatever. Send it off to two separate lawyers, come back 48 to 72 hours later. And if both lawyers, and guaranteed both lawyers will have changes that they want to make in the agreement. So at least cover yourself legally. Anyways, the point of my story with this guy was he sold it. He didn't pay any commission. But when I did my due diligence, especially with the market right now and multiple offers, home selling super quickly, again, you want to advertise it to the widest audience possible and ensure that when those people show up to the house, that they are totally wowed and fall in love with the house, so they pay more. And I estimated that if it was one of our listings, he probably would have netted in the vicinity of 10% more.
It's huge.
10%. So, maybe you're going to pay 5% to brokerages to represent the buyers and the seller. But at the end of the day, after your fees, so now you're paying a lawyer extra to review the agreement of purchase and sale. You're doing up the agreement of purchase and sale yourself.
Well, your lawyer will likely charge a bit more too.
Well, that's what I just said. You're doing all of the advertising yourself. So are you paying for any ads anywhere? Kijiji, Toronto Star? I don't know.
Well, I think this is a big misconception that people think you don't need to. And our recent sale we just had is a good example of why you do. We sold a property the day it went to market, and the buyer's agent learned about it through some of our paid coming soon ads.
Yep.
It's a very, very effective.
Yep. And that's not even, that is just skimming the surface in terms of, the work that's being done and the costs that are involved. Like, yes, not every realtor's service is the same, but, when I speak from our perspective, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars are spent on a property before the for sale sign even goes in the front lawn.
Yes. Well, and that's the big thing about it is you have these companies that will charge you less, but that just means they have no money to do any additional services, which we have learned. And our best practices have inevitably fallen into providing these services that doing that gets you more money. So, thousands of dollars on staging, cleaning, marketing, advertising. Actually, there was a Toronto real estate broker, Brad Lamb, also a developer, who once said, I can't remember if it was an ad or if I just heard him say it, but it's something along the lines of, and I think this is worst case scenario. Whether you sell by yourself or enroll the services of a real estate brokerage, you'll end up with the same amount of money in your pocket. And I think that's probably worst case scenario. So the premise there is, why wouldn't you? Why do you want to take it on? It's a lot of work and liability purposes.
Yeah. I like Brad Lamb a lot. I think he's a super smart individual.
Yeah, I agree.
I kind of look up to him because I think, well, he's been in the industry for, I don't know how many years, probably 40 years now. But some of his developments have just done super, super well. And I'd love to get into some of that, as you know. The thing is, a lot of people don't know, like they think that they might know how to do it on their own. And they think that, oh, if this realtor just sold this house for $1 million, that means mine's worth $1 million. So I'm just going to ask for $1 million and somebody's going to show up and give me $1 million.
Well, in certain areas, more so newer developments, like in Milton, where we do a lot of business. Recently, for whatever reason, just coincidence, of course, there's this one particular model of home. We just sold one on Rural Drive. That particular model, I've seen about half a dozen of them pop up over the course of a week. And if you look at the selling prices of them all, the range is enormous. And they're all the exact same floor plan, same size. And of course, they have their differences in terms of finishes, quality, condition, et cetera. But, and that also speaks to the truth of the skill of negotiating and properly representing somebody makes a big difference.
Well, it's also knowing, okay, here, I'll give you a live example. We sold 2531 Northampton Boulevard in Burlington. And we sold it for a stupid amount over asking, given the asking price was lower than our anticipated selling price. But the asking price was also higher than any other comparable sale in the complex. So seemingly at $650,000, we were priced okay because the last comparable sale sold for, I can't remember now, $635 or something like that. But when I did my analysis as to what my price recommendation was and our targeted selling price, I quickly recognized that we had a very captive audience in terms of who. What are you doing?
Sorry, I didn't know you. I'm adjusting my screen so that all the lines are running parallel. It's just driving me mad.
You are just a fidgeter. So I quickly realized that we had a very captive audience for a property like that. And knowing the target demographic, like who is the potential buyer for this home, is super important. And I knew right away that the buyer for that home was going to be a first-time home buyer. And I knew the uniqueness of that home was going to attract a very young family, somebody with a young child or expecting or just got married and want to have kids, because it's a 3-story townhome and it's all above grade. The first floor is a walkout. So you actually have a fenced-in yard, where most 3-story townhomes in Halton region don't have a backyard. So I knew right away that first-time home buyer, it's got a backyard. There's nothing else like it comparable. It's really hard to find anything around $700,000. So right away, I knew if we price it below where people would expect it to be, and I think the expectation was that it probably would be around 700. Even though the last comparable sold for 635, I figured, okay, 700 is our target price. And in the first 24 hours, we had, I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say 25 appointments scheduled. And we ended up with a preemptive offer. So preemptive means we scheduled a offer night. We listed it on the Thursday. We said we're going to accept offers on Tuesday, but if the right offer comes along beforehand, we will consider it. An offer came in, and I said to the sellers, the offer came in on Friday, so the day after listing. And I said to the sellers, listen, Saturday is literally booked from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. with showings. I know there's nothing else comparable to this property in this price range, which means if a buyer goes to see your house, they don't have really anything else to go and look at. So the options are super limited. So I suggested to them that we wait until Sunday night to review offers and don't consider any offers until then. Let all of these showings come through. I guaranteed them, I said to them, I guarantee you, I'm going to get a couple of those showings. They're going to fall in love with your property. And then I'll work behind the scenes to negotiate with them to make sure we're getting top buck. It's exactly what happened. We ended up with 6 or 7 offers. 2 of them were battling it out. 3 of them were battling it out to the final minutes. And we ended up selling for $780,500. So $130,000 over asking, $145,000 over the most comparable sale in that cul-de-sac of townhomes. 100, like, can you so if you were selling privately, you would look at the stats, and even if you called in a realtor to give you an estimate of value, you would say, wow, if I sell for 700, I'm doing really well.
Right.
These sellers, if they sold for 700, they would have been happy. I don't know. But 780 is what they got. And let me tell you, the initial offers that came in from those top 3-4 offers were all over 700,000. It's the next hour of negotiating back and forth and me working in the best interest of the sellers that elevated that price. Because now I had 2 or 3 buyers that desperately wanted to purchase this home because they knew there was nothing else comparable. They went in there, they fell in love. And I'll give the sellers a ton of credit on that one, because as soon as they contacted me, which was a couple of months prior, they said, we want to buy a house and then ultimately sell ours. What should we do first? And I advised them to buy first because it wouldn't be a problem to sell theirs quickly. And the type of home they were looking to buy was in a neighborhood which would be challenging to find. So they commented right away. They said, we already started to declutter. We already started throwing stuff out. We already started purging our closets and cleaning and deep cleaning. And then we had our designer go through and say, okay, do these few things in preparation for staging. And they took the consultation, they took my advice, and they literally did it all.
I think that's very consistent among our clients. And I think they understand. I think many of them maybe follow us and they understand the importance of doing those things.
They actually told me they watch our podcast. So if you guys are watching, thanks for watching. But they watch our podcast on YouTube together at night in their living room.
That's cute. I think, the whole pricing strategy and knowing when to push for more money and when not to, or when to consider an offer and when not to, those intricacies of the industry that a seasoned real estate agent should be able to should know, keyword. Those are things that make a world of difference in the sale. So another house we recently sold, There's not a whole lot of comparable homes to it on the market. A recent, very similar home had sold. We knew that there was a lot of competition on it. We knew that a lot of people missed out on it. And we were banking on someone who missed out on that, looking at our listing, and it worked out that way. That's the ultimate buyer was somebody who missed out on that other house. And based on the strategy that we ultimately selected, it worked out really well. Those are things that somebody selling on their own, they're not privy to it. They don't have their finger on the pulse of the market like that.
Well, and you look at our sale on Maxted, totally different strategy, totally different tactic, if you will. If you asked everybody on our team to value the property, you'd probably get 8 different opinions. And then you and I collaborated on coming out with the right price and the right strategy, and ultimately it worked.
Well, we didn't even see eye to eye on it. So those are things
correct.
that we as a team enjoy. I really enjoy that part of having a team at our disposals. We can feed off of each other, and everyone's out in the market, looking at houses, shopping, hearing from buyers and sellers. So we can kind of compile all of those conversations into our strategic decisions on how to.
Well, and you look at a house like that, and what was it that I told you about the buyer? And was I right? Because I don't even know who the buyer was, but was I right?
The buyer of that one, I vaguely remember your conversation. I think it was related to the type of buyer in general, which is likely who they were, just somebody upgrading. And they were, it was something to do with buying, because this has had a pool, spending less money and putting your own in, or buying it with it there and not having to worry about it. And that, anyways, I'm sure that was a consideration for them. But they did lose out on that other. So that the house I just talked about, a similar listing sold around the corner with a lot of competition. So a number of people missed out on it. They were one of them. So they saw, actually I have to ask the agent, because I don't know if the agent saw our coming soon ads or the flag on the lawn, or his clients did. But they knew
because he called the 1-800 number, and that agent we've done a ton of business with.
Yeah, great guy, good local agent, and he was great to deal with, and he got his clients in there 10 o'clock in the morning, and the house was sold by 10 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah. So. Well, again, there's that network. Having a realtor that knows what they're doing, has a network, and knows how to reach that network.
Yes. But let's talk about that house for a second. Because let's talk about the work that was put into it. So first of all, our clients, same as you were just saying, they did literally it was funny because they didn't want to do half the stuff, but they did everything, as much as they resented doing it. They did everything we asked of them.
And they thanked you at the end of the day for it, right?
Well, it's funny because one of them he's into racing, NASCAR specifically. He had a lot of NASCAR memorabilia and posters and stuff up in the basement. And our designer asked him to remove it. And he was I think he was upset about it. He didn't want to. But he nevertheless, they'd done business with us before. This is their second time selling a house with us. So they understand our process. He agreed to do it as much as he didn't want to. And when it was all prepared, he actually went out of his way to say, wow, I'm really impressed. Now I see why you suggested to do that. So like for that house, we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 staging it. We had tons of marketing in the house. We spent a ton of money on preliminary coming soon ads. Just the sheer amount of effort and money that goes into it to get it ready makes a world of difference. So if you're not taking those steps, that alone will cost you.
We so far in the first quarter are having a record-breaking year, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams out there and a lot of realtors that are saying the same, because the sheer volume of transactions going through the province right now is unheard of. But if I look back at our listings, I will say probably 8 out of 10 of them, if not more, are getting, at the end of the day, net proceeds in their pocket, are making more in their pocket than they had anticipated, even when you factor in the brokerage commissions.
For sure.
So, I don't know. I've been through enough homes that sellers have tried to sell themselves, and they never look great, right?
Well, there's one up for sale in Milton right now that's been on the market for I don't know how long. I've not been in it, but it's in a desirable neighborhood. It's priced way too high, but it looks like shit.
The average person cannot see, well, just like your example with our sellers on Maxted.
Yeah.
If they sold it privately,
or is it Max? As per Heather.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Welcome to Max Crescent. I'm like, what happened to Ted? If they sold it privately, that NASCAR, all that memorabilia is probably staying up there, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
It's
sure.
not being removed. People, when they live in their home and they decorate it themselves, they think it's nice, right? Like, oh, I painted my bedroom, and you walk into the bedroom and it's the color of your sweater, right? And you're like,
or they genuinely think, oh, I painted it neutral. And it's brown. Right. They think neutral is like earth tones, so that's neutral.
Yeah.
It does.
Painted it puke brown. Hope you like it.
Yeah. The worst is when they do that just before they call us.
And listen, everybody's entitled to their own taste,
yes,
and their own opinion. But when you prepare a property for sale, you're preparing it for the widest audience possible, so any buyer can come in and feel like they like the home and they could see themselves moving into it. When, and different parts of Ontario, certainly because how ethnically diverse the province is, you'll have different tastes, right? Like how many times I've gone into one of my buddies' parents' home. He's Italian. They're Italian, and parents have the plastic wrap on the sofas, right? Like that's, I don't know, it's the thing they do. One of my really good friends, they're Indian.
I'd like to ask someone about that. Like, doesn't that defeat the purpose? It's like, even like if you get a device with a screen that has that clear cellophane kind of cover, that's the first thing I got to do is peel that off.
Yeah, I don't know, but that was a thing. That is a thing. A lot of European people, they put those covers on. Certain people like big, gaudy wood, very sculptive type of furniture. I'm sorry, the average buyer doesn't like that stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when you take a 12 by 10 room and your bed is 12 by 11 and you're walking in there and you're like a sardine because the bed doesn't even fit in the damn bedroom, and that's the way you showcase the room, it doesn't work. So I don't know. I think, and again, we're kind of going all over the place with this topic. I think it's really hard to sell a home privately in this market, even though the market is fast moving. And if you do sell it in this market, you will not maximize your return on your largest investment, right?
I think here's the important thing is, I think there are some people who hire real estate agents who would have been better off selling on their own.
You're not wrong there. You're not wrong.
I think you
got to do your due diligence in terms of what am I getting for the money I'm spending?
Right. Exactly. Right? Who are you hiring? What are they doing? Because in many cases, we see it all the time. Very little efforts put into it. And you may have been better off selling on your own, but if you hire the right agent, it will make a world of difference. So do your due diligence. Don't just hire your brother's best friend, and certainly don't feel obligated to hire people like that.
Hey, do your homework.
Yeah.
Now, before we close or end this podcast, I just want to talk a little bit about, okay, you are dead set on selling privately. Here are some tips.
Yes.
Let's give these people some value. So if you are selling privately, you don't want to hire a brokerage to represent you or whatever. You even hire at one of those brokerages that are just going to post your listing on the MLS. You understand fully that probably 90% of the buyers that are going to come through your home are going to be represented by a brokerage, and you need to compensate them accordingly. Fine. You've decided all this and you're still going to do it on your own. You've decided that you are going to coordinate the showings and do all of that stuff, do all that legwork. So what are some tips that we can give these sellers to help them out?
One thing that drives me crazy is I feel like they like a lot. I mean, the type of person that may be very inclined to opt to go that route is somebody who feels like they need to be in control and need to be doing things and control the whole process. And as a result, they like to be there during showings, which not only is it detrimental to the sale because I mean, the buyer, this is an emotional thing. That's what sales is. You want the buyer to fall in love with the house. It is literally impossible for them to do that with you breathing down their neck. So do not be at home.
So tip number 1, get a lockbox, put a key in the lockbox, install, just like we do, install a wireless camera, Wi-Fi camera on your front porch so you can see who's coming in and out. You give access to whoever is coming to view the property. But like awkward, there's awkward. What if, okay, you get that buyer now that's unrepresented and wants to come and do a private deal with you? Are you just giving this random private person that's the lockbox code and saying, yeah, go through my house? Or now are you going to be there because you don't know who the fuck this person is? So you're going to stay home now and you're going to play realtor and take them for a tour? Little awkward.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a very good point.
But if knowing that 9 or almost all of these buyers are going to be represented by an agent, get a Wi-Fi camera and install it on your front porch so you can see who's coming in and out. Get a lockbox, put it up. You can get a lockbox for as low as, I don't know, $35 at Home Depot. Go buy one, put a key in it. That's tip number 1. Stay out of the house.
And along those lines as well, I remember one particular house that I was trying to show, and it was a for sale by owner, and he insisted on being at the house, and he worked 9 to 5. My clients worked something like 3 PM to midnight or something like that. So he would only allow showings, but after he got home from work, which obviously my clients were just not able to accommodate. So we were trying to get it in there on a, say, Tuesday or Wednesday. He refused. He wouldn't allow any sort of creative workaround that I offered, and we had to book it for the weekend. So we booked it for the weekend. He sold it on like the Thursday, and for not very much money. So don't limit yourself by needing to be in the house. You need to get as many people through the house. It's a numbers game.
Tip number 2, maintenance and cleaning. Make sure the home is clean. You might think it's clean, but your definition of clean and my definition of clean are probably going to be different. So don't clean it yourself. Okay. Spend a few $100. Since you're saving thousands of dollars of this magical money, go and spend $300-$400 and have a professional cleaning company do a deep clean and tell them, please, I want a deep clean on my house. That means full dusting, windows, window coverings, baseboards, inside and out of appliances. I want to be able to eat off of every square inch of the bathrooms. Cleanliness. If put it this way, if there is dirt looming anywhere in the house, it becomes a turnoff for a buyer. And
I don't think people understand how big of a turnoff it can be. It could be the perfect house. If it's in someone's perception considered filthy, they'll be immediately turned off.
Well, and even something as simple as, I remember once, and sorry if this grosses anybody out, but I remember once I showed a property. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. Went through the home, very nice home, nicely upgraded, presumably clean, looked clean. And what happened was, I guess they got ready in the morning and showered and did all their stuff in the master ensuite, or in the primary bedroom ensuite, and left for the day for showings. Lights were left on, window coverings open, so they did a lot of the steps that were necessary. This was a home listed by a realtor. And we opened the shower, and you could just see like the remnants of some we'll call it landscaping or manscaping that was left behind on the shower floor.
Yeah.
And the female, my buyer, when she opened and looked at it, she was so grossed out that she just wanted to get out of the house, and she was like tiptoeing everywhere after that, afraid of like stepping in somebody else's pubes. So, cleanliness is just super, super important. And same thing, oftentimes we'll find sinks that around the sink you have like men that trim or shave their beard or whatever. You'll get all those little hairs in the drawers of the bathroom. That turns people off, right?
Yeah,
it turns people off. Or you'll get like the crusty old pee stains around various areas.
Maybe you shouldn't sit in front of that window. You're like a squirrel.
I wish you could see what I see right now.
What's happening? Can you say or no?
Well, so beneath us, it's hilarious. So the office below us is midwives.
Yeah.
So there's this lady, clearly very pregnant, in front of my window with her husband behind her. And he's holding her hips. I think she's maybe in pain, has some back pain, but it totally looks like he's doing her from behind right now. And it's the funniest thing. Anyways, cleanliness will set the home apart, but also maintenance goes hand in hand with that. So you mentioned baseboards. So if the baseboards are dirty and have dust on it, that's a turnoff. But if the baseboards are also scuffed and the paint is we'll say weathered or discolored, and needs to be freshened up. Caulking that has weathered, or
I think that's a big one with caulking in bathtubs and showers that are moldy, and you just become desensitized to it and live with it.
You mentioned grout. You mentioned grout earlier in this podcast. Clean grout is super important. Grout that isn't missing.
Yeah.
The inside buyers, when they are interested in making an offer on a property, will start opening anything that they're buying. The fridge, the stove, the oven, the dishwasher, under the sinks, all of the doors and drawers in the kitchens and bathrooms, the closets. All of these areas are areas that the buyer is looking at with a magnifying glass. You are not, as the home seller. I guarantee you right now, in my home and in your home, I won't speak for your home, but I would assume you open your doors and drawers and kitchen cabinets and things like that. You will find areas that, as a seller, if you were selling your home, it wouldn't be deemed acceptable. Like you would need to tidy up or clean or wipe down or purge or whatever.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure.
So tip number 2, maintenance and cleaning. Just those 2 tips right there, you're putting yourself at an advantage against other comparable for sale by owners.
One little thing, well, not little, but one simple thing that I think goes a long way is just first impressions as far as it relates to when you walk in the house. So we always ensure that lights are on. So have every light left on, even if there's no showings booked that day. Before you leave, turn every light, whether it's a fixture or a floor lamp or table lamp, turn them on. Depending on the time of year, make sure temperature is set properly. Turn the fan of the furnace to the on position instead of auto, so you've constantly got fresh air circulating. We install Sonos speakers, and that's a nice touch to have some quiet music playing throughout the house. That goes a long way. I actually had someone comment on that yesterday. So those things make a world difference.
Window coverings
open, because the vast majority of houses that people are going to, even those represented with a real estate agent now, you walk in, the lights are off, the window coverings are shut, they're cold, quiet, and dark, and it's not a very nice environment. But if you walk into something that's lit and welcoming, it's very memorable.
Don't cook anything that is going to have lingering smells. Remove your garbage. So, even if you eat a banana in the morning, don't leave the banana peel in the garbage or in the compost, because it'll stink. Like something as simple as a banana peel, you smell it when you open the cabinets. Air fresheners. Get rid of air fresheners. A lot of people think, oh yeah, I'm just going to throw some air fresheners in here, make the place smell nice, and
bad idea.
Getting it ready for sale. Got to get myself some air fresheners.
I've had clients that have had to leave a house that we were just looking at because the smells they had a severe sensitivity to it. The woman was pregnant, so for her, it was making her nauseous. We had to leave. Couldn't even get halfway through the house.
So there you go. There's tip 3, scents and smells. Lights on, window coverings open. Number 4, pets. Get rid of your pets, not permanently, just temporarily until your home sells. Find them a home until that happens, whether it's family, friends. There's a number of excellent long-term boarding facilities. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are afraid of certain animals.
I've had clients not go in a house that had a cat. You think your pet's cute and cuddly, and some people don't.
As you know, I am very, very allergic to cats. So that's a no-no. Get rid of your pets. Stay out of the house. Turn the lights on. Open the window coverings. Get rid of your garbage. No sights and smells. Clean the house top to bottom. Deep clean. Do all the maintenance work. There you go. Those are our 4 pretty in-depth free tips for those of you that are going to sell on your own and that we can't convince otherwise. If you are thinking of selling and have been thinking of selling privately and just want to have a conversation with us, our consultations are free. So if you want to pick our brain or anybody on our team, we'll definitely have that chat. And if we can't convince you to use our services, we'll certainly give you some tips and some pointers to wish you a successful sale, because some people can do it. Some people can do it. Like, I swear, this is what got us into this business 11 years ago, is when we sold our properties in Oakville, and we both chose realtors that were prominent in those areas. We looked at each other and said we could have done better ourselves, and we probably could have. So, back in that day, we could have sold privately and probably netted more money. But so, it's not for everybody. Some people will be able to do it. Some people don't want to do it. You're going to have a mixture of everything there. But for those of you that are going to take it on your own, at least get some advice. So that's it. Episode 126. of KT Confidential, the real estate podcast. I'm Ariel Cormendi. He's Adrian Trott. We'd love to hear your comments, your feedback. Throw us a message with any topics that you want in future podcasts. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
See ya.
Bye-bye.